All right, so the session, oh, I don't know why it took out the picture, but so the program that I am directing and that I'm a faculty for is a master's in higher education administration. I myself got a master's in higher education as well, and then a PhD in higher ed as well. Well, social science comparative ed, but I do all my research in higher ed. So I also have that experience as well to share as a shared experience with you all. Let me see. It's not going next. No. I don't know why it's not. Let me stop really quick and share it again because for some reason it's not doing what I want it to do. Oh no, it like, all right, let me close it out completely. I'm so sorry. For some reason it like deleted all the information. All right. Let's try this one more time. All right, now it has everything. All right. All right, so you are probably going to hear, if you've been kind of exploring our different programs and just where the master's in higher education resides, you probably have read a lot about the different missions and the values that drive our different programs. So this just is the general mission and goals for the School of Education that really drives everything that we do. For those of you who work at LMU, you know, like it's a very mission-driven type of institution. Everything is influenced by its mission and what it does. And everybody draws back on that. So it's very much informing what we do in the School of Education as well. So we're very passionate about lifelong learners. So all of you who've been in school forever, I've been in school forever too. We are all about that, the lifelong learner. We also believe in the education of the whole person, promotion of service and justice for all. This very much stems from the social justice missions of the Jesuits. It is a Jesuit private institution, and so that mission is very much alive with the School of Education. And then we are driven by the real framework: respect, educate, advocate, and lead. I don't know where my brain went. That one. Why isn't it? Oh, there we go. Another big component of our School of Education is that we really value, and this program very much incorporates commitment to social justice, and in particular, anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. So we're all about that. Once you start opening up our admissions application, I'll share with you what the questions are. We want to know what drives you in terms of when you think about these value systems that we draw from in terms of anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Like, is there anything that you've ever done in terms of your service, your leadership, or your professional experiences that really aligns with this value as well? We want to bring in folks that also align with this value system. We make sure that we incorporate that in our coursework and our pedagogies, the way I work with students, and so forth. Some of the benefits of LMU, which you might hear in other sessions if you get a chance to, and I think the recording gets shared with you as well. So if you don't get a chance to go into any of the other sessions, you might want to kind of listen into some of the other sessions that the graduate admissions organized. So at LMU, and especially our program itself, we're a cohort model, meaning that you come in with a group of students and you're in classes with this group of this community with folks, and really draw on the mentorship as well. So we have a cohort model. It's a very small class sizes, very, very small class sizes. Individualized attention is a big thing. I mean, that's part of the perks of going to, I went to undergrad to a public school, then did graduate school. My master's was also a graduate school, Claremont Graduate University. And that's one of the perks of a private school, right? It's this very individualized attention. I know my students very well. They know me very well. We have faculty in our program who are experts, scholars, and also expert practitioners. So I myself, faculty researcher here at LMU, but we also draw from the expertise and have folks teaching in our program who are leaders from LMU, and also we've had folks who have taught in their programs that are outside of LMU. Like for example, right now we have actually Dr. Kawana Leggett, who's teaching a class for the program right now. She's the senior VP of Student Affairs here at LMU. She's awesome, awesome instructor, awesome just person and practitioner. We've also had folks like the president of Santa Monica City College. She's taught a class on community colleges before. So we have different folks that come in who will teach in our program. The direct faculty that are full-time faculty that are in the program that teach for the program are myself and also Dr. William Perez, who does a lot of work around undocumented students and Indigenous students. We have a requirement for field work, so we value the applying the theory to praxis, and so we do require a fieldwork class. But even throughout all our classes, we want to make sure that we know that you are applying the concepts and the research and the theory back to like what does it mean for like in real life, like what would I do with this information? And so we draw a lot from that. Our program is very much designed around the working professional. So all our students, most of our students, all our students work, majority work full time. And so all our classes, we are a mostly online program. There are opportunities where we ask our students, do you want an opportunity to meet together? So like, for example, this semester, one of my classes that I'm teaching, they wanted to meet at least one time. Like they're really busy professionals. They're working in different parts of LA. So it is a hard commute for them. So they're like, but at least one time we're finishing up. It's a final semester. So they're like, we want to meet at least one time. All right, let's do that. So we're going to be meeting online, but know that it's mostly online. It is, and if you can't come, we will find ways we will have you join us online, even if the majority wanted to meet in person. We're flexible that way. When we do meet, it's in the late evenings. And so we will also want to make sure that it's accessible to folks. So working professionals, we try to have classes. You take 2 classes per semester in the academic year, and they're all falling on the same day, so that you know that if we do have a class meeting or a Zoom session together, then it's on the same day. We also do that intentionally just in case there's opportunities, like if we have a speaker that might be great for all of the classes to kind of listen in, then we all just know that on Wednesdays, like that's the day that we do things together. So that's what we do. These are some of the faculty. So like I mentioned, Dr. Perez, myself are some of the full-time faculty that are for the program, and some of these other administrators from LMU have been some of the folks that have been coming in to teach some of the classes for our program as well. So what does the higher ed master's do? So it prepares you for positions within higher education, but also even outside of higher education. So some folks end up wanting to do, and I've been teaching in higher education programs, master's and doctoral programs. Folks either want to work in higher ed, so working in community colleges, four-year colleges, or they want to work in different areas that are related to higher ed. So I've had students who end up pursuing positions in like think tanks, for example, like policy, like they want to work with policy, and they want to inform that, and so they've gone on to work with like nonprofits or policy organizations where they're able to do some of that work outside of a higher education setting. I've also had students who who are interested in higher ed, but as it relates to the kind of the K-12 system, like the college access piece. Like I have a student now who's a lot of her professional experience has been working with high school students and preparing them to go to college. That was actually my track too, like working with Upward Bound, working with first-gen students, getting them to college. And she's looking at positions, whether it's higher education settings or in K-12 settings, like being the college, counselor, for example, or or some nonprofit organization that works with high school students and getting them to college. So we have kind of like the realm, different folks, different areas of interest, but everybody's kind of in the same in that they want to work in higher ed. I've also had other folks who like their aspirations is like higher level administration. So their path through the master's is because they want to eventually do a doctorate and want to be like the dean of students, for example. Those folks tend to have, those higher level administrators tend to have doctoral degrees. And so they're looking for that. And so our coursework really tries to share the different, introduce you to the different contexts of higher education, research, theory around it, and really tries to kind of introduce you to the different types, even like, so 2-year versus 4-year, public, private, religiously affiliated, like LMU is, to really give you a good foundation in terms of what do these different institutions look like, what does the research say around these institutions and how they serve students, and others, like, so not just because higher education institutions also have faculty, staff, how do they work with them, right? And so we learn about all and talk about these things. The program is 2 years. You would start summer session 2, which is the second half of summer. That's like, what is that, like late July or so when you start, or July when you start, late June, early July when you start. And then the following summer, you take also one more class. So it's a 31 unit program, 2 summers plus 2 regular academic years. Any questions so far? So this is what the courses that you would be taking, and just to give you a sample of the kind of like what you would be taking every time, or not every time, but throughout your time in the program. So you learn about leadership foundation in terms of like history of higher ed. So like how did it even start? Like, what is the different historical contexts that are important to know in terms of higher education now? Like how higher education is organized, administration of it, the theory aspect of it, looking at like different critical theory and how does it apply into higher education. You also learn about the community college system. You take a research methods class, field work, law and policy class, and resource management, which also gets into like the organizational administrative structures of higher ed. And then leadership higher ed, that brings in a little bit more, so like starts preparing you for your comp exam. So aside from coursework, one of the big requirements at the end will be a comp exam, which is a comprehensive exam, which for us, it means it's a paper that you would be building on in every class, that focuses on a problem of practice. So what is a problem that you see that you think is something that might be of interest for you to explore? And then you build a paper around that, like, well, what would you do about it? Like, what are some things that you would design to address this problem? So some students are, in the past, were interested in, for example, like the admissions of students of color and affirmative action issues. And so they wanted to build professional development around admissions for folks to increase enrollment of students of color into especially highly selective institutions. So stuff like that, like what is a problem you want to address, and you bring in literature, you do a literature review, and then you build a program that you propose a program or some type of initiative to address that problem. Admissions requirement, you have a personal statement, and I'll show you what the questions are that I expect that folks respond to. Official transcripts from the institutions that you have attended. There's one letter of rec required. You'll see once you get into the details of the admissions application that there's one required and a second one that's optional. Submitting an optional one is not gonna give you a leg up or anything. It's just an opportunity that, like, for folks who maybe have been out of school for a really long time, and then they're like, well, I haven't really stayed connected with some of my faculty, like and who I am now is very different from who I was back in college. Like, and so I'm going to get a recommendation from my boss, but then I'm also wanted some, or I'm going to get this faculty that I did stay connected with, but who really knows me as my boss. So I'm going to submit the second letter. That kind of gives you those opportunities. It's also there for as a just in case. And this partly is driven from my own experience too, that when I was applying to graduate school, I had a letter of rec person who at the very end, they just couldn't submit it. They had some personal things happening, and at least it allowed me to submit a second letter that kind of still allowed me to submit the requirements. So that's why it's there, but not something that's required. A second letter is not required. You don't have to do it. And like I said, it's not like it gives you a leg up or anything. It just another opportunity if you need it, if you feel that to kind of really speak to who you are and why you should be admitted. There's no GRE required for our program. The priority deadline is April 15th, so submitting everything before then would be ideal. It's priority, not final. So I have had students who are at the very end, they're like, oh my God, my letter of rec is still not in. Can I still submit it after the fact? There is that opportunity, but we do encourage you to try to submit before that deadline. The personal statement, we really want you to draw on and try to connect to some of the social justice missions so we want you to read what our social justice mission is and really think about how your professional, your personal or academic experiences or service, maybe if you've been a volunteer for the Boys and Girls Club or something that really has inform the way you see the world and the reason why you want to pursue a degree in this area. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that you're you're making those connections and letting us know who you are. Here's just another overview of the program. Any questions? I think I'm at the end of it. Yeah. Any questions?
So, what type of positions do your students normally apply to, or what career pathways does this guide you to?
Yeah, I mean, it really is open in terms of it's open in terms of the type of institutions folks apply to or the types of positions they're looking for. Some of my students want to become like academic advisors or academic counselors. In the K-12 system, especially in the public school system, you need to be an academic counselor for K-12, you need a PPS credential. So it's not a preparation, to be clear with that part, is that it doesn't prepare you for that part because we don't have a PPS credential. There's a counseling program if that's the route. However, this could be an opportunity for if you wanted to do counseling, but at the higher education level, which does not require a PPS credential. So for example, academic counselors at the community college, it requires a master's. And if you look at the requirements, it's like master's in counseling or something related. Well, this is something related.
Right.
And community colleges for counseling positions, they want to see that you have experience with community colleges. And so like making sure like for those students that are eager to pursue that route, I tell them, okay, field work has to be at a community college because they like to see folks that either like all of you have some type of experience with the community college system. They either like to see that student or that potential employee or the person who worked in them somehow, some way. And so that's one route that folks may take. They might take, so there's advising folks. Some want to go 4-year college advisors. There's that. Others want to be more like coordinating or directors of like programs and stuff like that. There's that. Others, like I mentioned earlier, is like they want even higher level administrators. So they kind of already know that they want to do that. Now they just want to make sure that they have the degree required to kind of step into those different degree paths and then future positions. Like I have a student who eventually wants to be a VP at a community college, like that's his goal. And so he's doing the master's. Eventually he'll do the doctorate and eventually get to that position. And right now he works at a community college, and leads a lot of the efforts to serving students from underrepresented backgrounds, like men of color initiatives, former foster youth initiatives, and so forth. That's what he does at the community college. I mentioned earlier the student she works at a nonprofit. Her goal is to find a position working, advising, and or counseling. So she's looking at K-12, she's looking at everything. Nonprofits that work with high school students, or ideally high school students, and helping them get to college. She works with one now. She's looking into higher ed, looking at counseling, advising positions, both public and community college, 4-year and community colleges. Her fieldwork was at a community college. And or she's also looking at like programs that are within high schools. So like career college counselors, for example. The career counseling folks at the high school level don't always require the PPS credential.
Mm-hmm.
Academic counselors, yes, not necessarily always at the center, not the center folks. And so she's also looking at those positions. So yeah, so I have all kinds of, I've had students at my previous institution with a master's degree. She's now working at a policy institute that does research around higher ed for the state of Nevada. So there's those types of positions. So yes, it's really, I mean, all over the place in terms, so long as it's like higher ed related. So those
Mm-hmm.
K-12, it's higher ed related because it's like college access, interest. Um, so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Other folks, I also have had folks who their goal is to be a professor, like where
Mm-hmm.
I'm at now. And so they're looking to find like, can I get research experience so that I could then apply for PhD programs or other EDD programs to eventually be a professor. So that's their goal. So yeah, so all kinds of different paths that you could take with this, but
Yeah.
definitely connected to higher ed.
And so when we tell you, okay, my goal is to be maybe in higher ed administration. So is that what the field work would be? So then you'd place us like, okay, well, you'll be here then. Or if I say I want to be an academic advisor, so then you'd place me here.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and some folks already have it's very much student initiated too, right? Or like not
Right.
initiated, but driven by your goals. So it's similar to what you're telling me, right? So like, yes,
Uh-huh.
as we're going through it, some folks start the program and that fieldwork class is in your second year. So
Mm-hmm.
by that time, like, because some folks come in thinking like, I want to be this. And then they take the classes and then they're like, oh shoot, like
Mm-hmm.
higher ed's way bigger than what I thought it was.
Right.
And actually I might be interested in this other thing. And so so then sometimes it's an opportunity for folks who like yourself, right? Like you're teaching, and I had last year a student who graduated who was a former teacher. Like she started the program as a middle school teacher, and she's like, I want to go higher ed. Like I don't want to do she was a middle school teacher. I don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
teaching anymore.
Yeah.
Teaching, yes, but not teaching in the K-12 anymore. Like I want to engage more with college students. And so now she's working as an advisor for one of the our academic, not in School of Ed, but at another school. I think the School of Film and Television. I forgot. She just started recently, but yeah, we have those folks that go in that path. So her field work, we made sure she had a position at LMU, so that she could get her feet wet in terms of like higher ed again and like connecting those things, and then making sure we made sure like her resume really talked about her teaching experience and how it aligns to higher ed, right? And so it's in different ways, right? So like that fieldwork experience, that's one way to get your foot in the door into higher ed if you haven't had that yet. Speaking to how it relates, I see how it relates. I'm that person who straddled the K-12 higher ed. And so making sure that it communicates like that to land you in a position in higher ed. So yeah, so it's done in different ways. Other folks, I've also worked with a student who's been working in higher ed for over 10 years and really is just looking for this degree to boost up they're not trying to find another job. They're really just wanting to boost up their salary or make sure that they secure their position, because some positions have evolved to you needing a master's. When they started, they didn't. And so for them, it's more so skills. What are the skills do you want or need to make sure that you build on whatever you have to make you that person for your position now. They're not trying to go anywhere else. So yeah, so it's driven by student goals, like what is it that you're wanting to do? And then
Mhm.
some folks are coming in too with their own connections to stuff, and others like I'm making connections. Like, hey, there's this person. We have alumni that will be more than happy to receive you in their position in their offices and stuff like that. So we try to connect you to that too.
Great. That's good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have two. I
Okay.
know that you mentioned that that at some point you worked in the community college setting. What was your experience like?
That was my favorite experience. I always encourage students like check out community colleges. For me, that was the place because they do so much. I got to experience so many things that I was able to build my resume in a short time. Like I moved up into a really high position pretty quickly because of the experience that you get. You end up at in the community college. One of the challenges, the benefits is you get exposed to a bunch of things. The challenge is you wear a lot of different hats. And so you do have that, but I feel like professionally it sets you up very well. In terms of pay, community colleges pay in public higher ed, they're the best paid folks. Faculty, admin, everybody pay is the highest, followed by Cal States, then UCs. You would think it's the other way around. It's not. So an academic advisor at a UC will get paid, I forgot where it's at now, but it's way less than a community college counselor gets paid. And so that's another kind of perk benefit of the community college system. A lot of folks who start community college as a professional, they don't leave because of the benefits
Um,
and supports. Yeah.
that's good to know. You mentioned about the pay rates, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost wondering if like it's just I don't know, you know, you said community colleges pay much better than the UCs, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what exactly it could be, but I get a hunch that maybe it's that way because we are serving the underserved population that faces many challenges. So they realize that, we're wearing many hats, so they have to compensate, you know, they have
That's,
to compensate you, right?
that's part,
Versus like
that's
if
part of
um
That's part of it. That's part of it.
yeah, because I mean I wish the organization I work for um was that way, but we're very small and we're also nonprofit.
Yeah,
Um, but a lot of our students, if not all, I think our percentages free and reduced is about 98% all across 3 schools. So that's how I made the connection. One
yeah,
of the hats that I had to wear a few years ago was the lunch program
yeah,
and
yeah. See,
attend.
that's that
So
you're so the being so yes, you are. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect in terms of the pay being different. Uh, which again, it's one of many factors, but one of the other factors that community colleges, there's 114, 113 community colleges in the state of California. We're one of the biggest systems compared to other places. The other places that are big too is like New York, Texas has a big community college system, and they're unionized. So you have 113 community colleges, a ton of staff faculty who are pushing for higher pay. So they have these annual increase, like they have a great kind of advocacy group, I guess,
yeah,
who their union support them very well. So that's another reason why. But yeah, part of it is what you're saying too. Is like you're serving majority folks who are folks from underrepresented backgrounds and higher needs and kind of needs for us to support them.
yeah,
And just a higher volume, right? So they have a whole bunch
hmm,
more students compared to any other because you have the associate degree seeking, transfer seeking, you have the folks who are looking for certificates, some who are just taking a class, like they're not even, you don't have to enroll in a program to take a class. Um,
yeah,
all walks of life, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, one of very, very many factors.
Then my other question was, and I guess they're kind of tied to each other, tuition and the 31 units that, we are required, to complete the program. Um, you said the program is about 2 years and a half. So how are the classes broken down? Like, I know that you mentioned that each summer we take one class, correct?
Yes.
And
So
then
one,
what do the other semesters look like since we're set into cohorts? Is it like 3 to 4 classes?
it's
Um,
it's 2 classes for the most part. So if you see here, I have I have it broken down by year and term. So for the most part, it's 2 classes. The only
okay,
time it's 3
it's
is
in the
spring of
spring.
your first year. And that's only because you have two of those 3 are 2 semester units. So half of the semester you take one class, and then the other semester you take the other class. So at any one given time, you're still only taking 2 classes. It's just that term you complete 3 classes. I don't know if that makes sense. So one full semester class, and
Yeah,
then the other 2 broken down. So that's the only time that you take more than more than 2 in a whole term. But the rest of the time, because even that last spring, that one comprehensive one, that's a 0 unit. So it's not a formal class. It's just that's where like that's the kind of the class that you submit the
kind of like,
paper.
what do we call it? Kind of like a lab where, like,
Yeah, kind of like the lab.
yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. So it's tied to that Leadership 2 class. Leadership 2 class, you get the support. It's like professional development, prepping you for a job or whatever your next career move is. It's prepping you for the comp exam. Like their students are currently working on their paper now with me through that leadership class. So that's what that is. Yeah. So yeah, so you're not taking no more than 2 at any given specific time. Yeah.
Got it. And what is the general cost of the program?
That
What is
I don't have on the top of my head.
it
I
like
don't,
a generic, is there like not a, I don't want to say like a flat fee, but like, is there like a specific, and I've seen it, but I just can't access it. Um, is it like, okay, like when you go to a Cal State system, right? There's like if you take 0 to like 12 units,
right.
15 minutes, it's X amount. Is that how LMU operates, sort of?
Not the same way as Cal State, not the same way as Cal State. So I
See
know that
the
they do
chat.
like the ranges and it's this
Yeah,
amount by this range. We don't do that. Ours is by unit. So, and I don't remember off the top of my head. There is a financial aid session that
yeah,
I think is out. I think Addis just, oh, see, and Addis just put the
yeah.
link
I just
in
saw it
the
in the
district
chat.
cost. So it's by unit. It's not in those ranges. The only difference is like there is a higher cost for like the doctorate. That's the only difference in terms of graduate school at LMU, that there's a difference in terms of pay rate. Other than that, all master's program, it's by unit, and it's that cost that will.
And then I don't know, maybe um, are there any I know that there's scholarships. There's like a huge scholarship website, that you can anyone and everyone can apply to, right? But do you guys, or would you happen to know if there's something specific for the higher ed program? Are there any scholarships available?
Not specifically linked to the higher education program, but that's where I would defer to the
Yeah,
financial aid session to attend to see what else is available for any graduate student at LMU, to see what else you could apply for.
yeah.
I know that if you submit the FAFSA, then that also kind of, if you qualify for things, that also, if you submit one, not all graduate students decide to submit one. I submitted one when I went to graduate school.
You never know.
Exactly. I mean, that's, and I was low income, so I qualified for stuff. But like, I know that for sure you qualify. If you qualify, there's work study opportunities for graduate students.
And
Um,
probably loans too, right?
and definitely loans. I
Yeah.
know that you have access to that. But yeah, I would recommend submitting the FAFSA if you are applying, just so that you could see what's available to you, and you could always then, that also helps you then reaching out to financial aid and asking for, hey, like, you know, I really need support. Is there anything else that you guys have that I could apply for? I mean, but submitting the
Yeah.
FAFSA is kind of like a key, you know, like anywhere, I guess, you know, like if you ever submitted FAFSA, it's like kind of a key to unlocking some of those things.
Um,
So
as far as field work, um, what are like the how long are we supposed to, I know what I want to ask. How many hours are we required for field work? There you go.
yeah. So as a requirement, it's a minimum. So let me back up a little bit. Fieldwork class is a 3-unit class. So the requirements for the hours committed to that fieldwork class is as if you were taking a regular class. It's part of the requirements for LMU, like any
Yeah.
unit, you have to have a certain amount of hours or whatever. But in terms of actual field work time versus anything related to class, is at least 80 hours that you do throughout the semester. Some students decide to like start a little bit of the hours beforehand, especially folks who are working full time, they may do something like that. Others decide to like the most everyone completes it in the semester. But I'll also say that because sometimes folks get nervous. How am I going to complete all these things? Like, I'm working full time. How am I supposed to do it? I talk to students about like thinking about, well, what can you tell whoever ends up being your fieldwork supervisor in terms of your commitment? What can you do? And so then they're able to advocate for themselves, like, hey, I could only do things that are outside of business hours. I just can't do 8 to 5, like, you know, and what can we do that I could still support you, you support me, but you know, out of business hours. And I could do every 2 weeks a 1-hour meeting where we could check in, blah blah blah. So it could be driven by you and what you need and what you can do. Most students, like I said, complete those 80 hours. 80 hours, to tell you kind of comparatively to other programs, is really low. Like my students at UNR used to do 140 hours. And they finished it also in the semester. Some of them working, some of them, you know, with kids or like aging parents who they were taking care of. And they're always surprised at the end. Oh man, I completed all these hours. Like, yeah, because it's a class. You've been doing it,
Yeah.
right? You did 2 classes every term.
And wherever you whatever organization or wherever it has to be pre-approved, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing that we require is like not in your same office. So like if you're already working in higher ed or in an area that you want to, you kind of already in higher, like what we require is not in your same office. It could be in the same department, but maybe not in the same office, so you could get a different experience. Or it could be in another place or whatever, but definitely something related to higher ed. I coach you around like making sure you meet with a couple people before you commit to anything. Like you want to make sure you're committing to a place that is actually going to give you the experience that you want. Oh yeah, Eddie says, giving us our FYI, we are ending at 6 o'clock because there is I think there's a financial aid session right after this, I believe. I don't remember the schedule, Addis. Is that what's next?
Yeah, it's either financial aid or like career and professional development.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was nice meeting all of you.
Nice to meet you as well. Let me know if there's any questions along the way as you are completing. Nice meeting everyone.
Likewise. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Addis.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.